Good evening, everyone, and welcome to day 4 of our sales cloud training. And tonight, we're going to be looking into forecasting and enterprise territory management. Tonight's class is a bit short because it does not fall under a major topic within the sales cloud. However, it's something new that I feel you guys should have a dedicated session on. So the expectation from Salesforce is you should be able to discuss the capabilities and the use cases and design consideration for additional features such as territory management and forecasting. Okay, this falls under the Sales Cloud certification. This falls under the solution design for Sales Cloud. However, because it's something new, it's something that we haven't done before, I feel like we should have a dedicated session for it instead of having to pack it into what we learned yesterday, okay? This is where it falls on the application of product knowledge, okay? We're still gonna go through this tomorrow in depth. So let's get started. Let's talk about forecasting, and we're gonna talk about enterprise territory management, okay? Without wasting much time, let me go into the Salesforce org, the hands-on org, and launch and help for us to play with. So before we get started, let me kind of explain forecast. Yesterday, you learned about opportunities. You learned about how to collaborate, okay? You learned about how to split opportunity, how to get commission based on revenue and overlay, which is good. But there's also what Salesforce refers to as forecasting. Forecasting typically is just like the name described, you use it to predict the likelihood of something happening, the probability of something happening, okay? So if you go to the opportunity objects, you realize you have stages. And in those stages, you have pipeline, you have category of the stage, okay? So I'm just scrolling through the stages of opportunity, and I'm trying to explain to you right now. So what we have is the forecast category, okay? You would have noticed in most cases, everything is usually in the pipeline, which is obviously a good thing. But then again, not all forecasts should be in the pipeline. Some forecasts should just be something you came up with, okay? So if you try to create a new forecast, you see that you can create a forecast based on best case. You can create a forecast based on commits, omitted, and the likes. So forecasting and pipeline, they are somewhat related, but there's a big difference between the pipeline and forecast. For instance, the pipeline is just like a comprehensive view of what the sales rep or who is working on an opportunity. A comprehensive view of the accumulation of opportunities within that particular stage. Like I explained yesterday, that's the pipeline, okay? You have that comprehensive view. But in terms of forecast, it's just a subset. So forecast is like a subset of whatever you have in this pipeline, okay? It's like a subset of what is likely to happen to those opportunities. So without the opportunities, without the pipeline, you can't really get a forecast, okay? And it includes deals that is expected to close. As long as it's not closed, then it's in a forecast, right? So now, when it comes to Salesforce, how do you get started with forecasting and the pipeline and all the stuff I've just explained? To get started, everything you need to do when it comes to making different settings to what we have as a default in Salesforce, you need to go to your backend and you need to go to the quick find. The quick find is where you find anything that you probably are looking for that you know that could possibly exist in Salesforce. For instance, if I type in focus right now, I can have this here, but the forecast is not coming. Why is it not coming? It's because most likely we haven't set up the forecast, okay? So for you to set up forecast, you need to have forecast enabled in the settings. Once you enable forecast, you cannot deactivate forecast, okay? Once you enable focus, you cannot deactivate focus. You will need to reach out to the Salesforce customer support before you can deactivate focus. And by focus, I mean collaborative focus, okay? Because that's the only focus we get to have in Salesforce. There might be other type of focus, but collaborative focus is when you are and your colleagues are working on multiple opportunities and you're trying to predict, or your manager is trying to predict who is performing well or the likelihood of this sales rep making a good sales for this month and the like. So the combination, the collective word is called collaborative focus, but you can just call it focus for simplicity. Okay, so I'm just going to enable focus. And once you enable focus, other features of focus will come up. What does that mean? It means that you will now have the opportunity to create focus type. You have the opportunity to create focus adjustment if you have been given the privilege to do that. Also, you have the ability to create what focus is rolling up to. For instance, you can have different sales rep, okay, working on different opportunities. As a manager, you might want to have a collaborative view of a particular or all the sales rep within your team. So what focus is rolling up to has to do with the rep which the focus is associated to in the org. Okay, so we also have date range. So the date range is when the focus starts. Okay, when the focus starts, when the focus ends, and we have show quotas. I'm going to explain all this stuff to you shortly. So first of all, let's create a sample focus type. But before we do that, let's see what the default state of the focus looks like in the Salesforce front end. Previously, we couldn't have this enabled, and I refresh this. Okay, once I refresh this, you can see the focus come up. And the focus is currently based on the opportunity revenue. Okay, the opportunity revenue is the current focus. However, you have the opportunity to create a different type of focus. By different type of focus, you can determine to say, okay, I don't want my focus to be based on revenue. I want my focus to be based on something else. I go to create a focus type and a wizard appears. This wizard is just where you try to create a different focus type, okay? You click on start and you click on opportunity. Remember, you can create focus based on opportunity product, and opportunity split. The opportunity split will not appear if you have not enabled team selling in Salesforce. Because I think yesterday we did something on opportunity split. That's why we can see the opportunity split here. However, if you have not enabled it, it will not appear here. Okay, so I'm going to use opportunity as my focus type. I go to next, then I can select the object of measure. By object of measure, this is what you're looking at. For instance, this is amounts. Okay, so the object of measure determines what kind of focus you want to make. So if you're selecting product, for instance, if you're selecting, let's say, opportunity products, you can say object of measure could be quantity. Okay, so basically, if you've ever used roll-up summary in Salesforce, roll-up summary gives you something you're adding together, right? So the object of measure, it's something that needs to be either quantified in terms of dollar amount or in terms of quantity. So you cannot measure, let's say, a category, medium, low, medium, high, something like that. You cannot measure that, okay? You can only measure something that can be quantified. So now going back to opportunity, you go to next, you select amount or whatever you want to select. You go to next, then you select a data type, which is the close date. You go to next, and you select the hierarchy, which is what you can roll up, what you can focus based on. As you can see right now, I'm just focusing based on this user. But if I were to be a manager or if I've grouped a focus together, I'll be able to see the type of forecast and how to arrange my forecast, which I'm going to show you in subsequent sessions. I select the user and I go to next. Then I can give a name, okay? So depending on what you select, so we already have opportunity revenue, so it doesn't make sense to do that. I can go to split. No, let me leave to opportunity revenue. But I can go to split and use a split instead, okay? Overlay amount, revenue amount, that's fine. That's what I want to roll up. Close date, that's fine. User row, that's fine. Then I can just say split focus. Okay, you don't create a focus that already exists. That's why I'm creating a different type of focus called splits. Then I save. Okay, so these columns which you see here is the columns that appears here. Okay, so if you want to minimize or increase the number of columns, you can see, you can just drag them here and you can see how the focus is changing based on the fields you have in the opportunity. Then you go to next and you click on done. Now you've created a different type of focus called the split focus, and you can refresh your focus to see the split focus. Obviously, we might not have enough data for split focus, but the split focus is not coming up here. That's because when you create a focus, you need to do one more thing. You need to activate that focus, okay? You need to activate the focus. That's the only way you can see the focus in the front end. So once you activate the focus, you should be able to see the focus in the front end, okay? So we see the split focus, and yeah, maybe not much data in the split focus, which is fine. You can simulate a split focus by making maybe you have different types of splits. You have different types of splits, and you can create focus based on the split, okay? But the split focus is just another way which you can forecast the amount, okay? So you save and okay, based on what we had yesterday, we need to have this guy in the member or the opportunity before you can add it as a split. Okay, so what that is saying is that I need to go back to this opportunity and I need to have this guy that I'm about to add in my splits as a member. Okay, so I just need to add opportunity team members, which is this, this. Okay, and I save. So having that, meaning that I can now go back to this opportunity and create a split for this opportunity, okay? Just go and add edit opportunity splits, and just, because it's revenue, it has to be 100%. I have this guy, then I have whatever notes there if I want to have a notes, but that's just for the splits. Let's focus more on opportunities. The opportunities revenue, it's something that we can easily practicalize. So let's make sure some opportunities are close won so we can see them in the forecast, as well as try to have, okay, we have at least close won. Let's go to this. We have close won. So I think we have some data, but remember, it has to be within the date range, right? So if the date range is matched, you don't see much of focus. For instance, let me show you this. Right now, the focus is starting from June, right? If we started from March, which the focus range you can select and say, I want to start from March 2023 or something like that. So I can see something more recent. I have this, March 2022. We're not in 2023 yet. So March 2022, where's March 2022? Okay, so this is March 2022. So I'm kind of like going backwards, right? And as you can see, you've seen this in the pipeline, which is good. But let's say we have opportunity. We have opportunity And we have a stage in the opportunity that is on best commit and the likes. So right now, we don't have anything in commit, we don't have anything in close and the like, which is fine. But we can go to the stage and go to, let's say, a prospecting stage, which normally by default is in the pipeline, but we can put it in, let's say, best commit, okay? Best case. Then we go back to opportunity and just create a new opportunity that is in prospecting, okay? We create a new opportunity that is in prospecting, and we have this, and we have prospecting, and we save. I need to have a type. I save, okay? Then prospecting, that's the current stage, and we know that we have a type of focus category for prospecting to be, let me refresh. Okay, we need to close. So we have best case, okay? We have best case data. So basically, the stage which you have given that focus category and the stage name and the focus category will contribute to your forecast. Now, this is not all about forecast, okay? There is more to forecast. For instance, let's go back to the forecast. And we want to measure performance. The only way we can measure performance is by creating quota. So for instance, I can say, I want to create quota for different agents, different groups of people. I can create quota, but before I can show this quota, I needed to have created a quota, right? So I go to show quotas, edit, show the quotas, okay? And you can also show the gap in quotas if you want, save. Then I go to different show quota for this, no quota. I can have a user and I can say, I want to enable this amount for this user. So once this user has 1,000 opportunity value closed for that particular quota, remember, it's based on opportunity revenue. So one that user has at least 1,000 value in terms of opportunity closed, then it has met its quota, right? So what that means is that in the front end, I can refresh this again for it to kick in. Okay, I refresh this. As you can see, the quota is now coming up, right? And you can see the quota for a particular user for a particular quarter. I'm going back again. You can see the quota, You can see the quota, okay? And if you go to a particular quota for June, show quota, no quota, I can go and create a quota for June, save, and when you go back to your forecast, you should be able to see like a quota for June or thereabout, because previously we created quota for March. Let me go back to March just to see. March 22. Let me start with June. If you refresh this, yeah, just 1 minute. Let me see. I want to see the quota for the show quotas. Row edit selected. I just want to see something. I should be able to see the quotas. This is the June fiscal year 2022 opportunity revenue. And you can go to the forecast, refresh this. Okay. And I have show quota attainments. No. I'm expected to see the quota. Just give me 1 minute. I want to see. Let's create a new opportunity just to see the reflection of that sample opportunity. Okay, and I'm going to say 2,000. That's not a problem. The close date is today. The stage is prospecting, but we're going to move it to close, save. Okay, we have this, and I'm just going to move it to close. Select close one. Okay, so let's go back to focus. And if you don't necessarily have to constantly go to focus through here. If you enable focus, you should be able to see focus in the tab. And if you don't see focus in the tab, you can go to edit and have focus on your tab. Okay, so let me refresh this again. And I changed this to revenue. That was the mistake I made. I was viewing splits instead of revenue, okay? So I changed it to revenue, and you can see the forecast, the quota for June. So if I go back to my range and I go to match, I should be able to see the quotas as well, okay? So let me take a step back. What are we doing here? We are forecasting, but we're not forecasting using Excel sheets. We are forecasting using Salesforce automated tools that helps us to find out the best case, the commit, the close, the pipeline based on the stages of the opportunity. If you're not into sales, if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's likely you don't know forecasting in sales, and that's fine. Okay? Sales Cloud is just a tool that helps you minimize the use of Excel sheets. Typically, you would have created a formula on Excel sheets that helps you with your forecast, like adding best commits, adding pipeline and stuff like that. But Salesforce is just an Excel sheet on the cloud, and they've automatically create formulas that would help you do certain things, okay? So now, that's not all about forecasting. There's still more about forecasting. What do we have more in forecasting? We have what they call adjustments. There is what they call enable adjustments. What are adjustments? Sometimes computers are wrong. Computers usually give you wrong value, or maybe based on your intuition, based on your previous experience, you feel that this is not right. There's what they call manager's adjustments, owner's adjustments. Manager's adjustment is when someone above you has the ability to edit forecast. Okay, someone above you has the ability to edit forecast. As you can see, I cannot edit this forecast, right? Because I don't have the privilege to edit this forecast, or adjustment of forecast has not been enabled in the org. I have just enabled adjustment. I'm going to refresh this. And you can see there's an edit button here. Okay? There's an edit button here. That's why I can enable, or I can edit adjustment, because I have enabled adjustment and I can see the edit button. Occasionally, as a manager, you can override someone else's adjustment. Okay? Remember, adjustment is when you want to override the default settings that Salesforce gives you out of the box. In addition to that, if you were to be a manager, you can override adjustment, but you need what they call a permission to override adjustment. Okay? So permission to override adjustment. Typically, if you want to have a permission to override adjustment, you need to create a permission set. Okay? You don't go to the profile and enable that. You need to create it as a permission set, and you attach that permission set to the manager or the person that needs to override adjustment. So to do that, you just create override adjustments. Okay? And you save. Then you go to add permissions. That gives the user of these permission sets the ability to override adjustment, override forecast, sorry. So override forecast. This is forecast, okay? So for you to override forecast, you need at least a read access on the opportunity object. You cannot just override something you cannot see. Okay, so you need at least a read access on the opportunity object in order to override focus. Again, if you don't know what a focus is, or if you're struggling to understand the concept of these sales terminologies, you need to take a step back and try to find out why you need a focus in a business. It's a common sense thing, but then again, you need to know why. Because if you don't understand why you're doing stuff, you wouldn't appreciate it. Focus is used to predict how much we're likely to have, how much quantity of a product we're likely to have, or other things that has to do with the future based on the current data. And pipeline is what we have currently. What is the realistic things we have that we can deal with? That's what you have in your pipeline. They are synonymous, but focus talks about the future based on the present data, and pipeline is about what we have based on the present data. Okay, so going back to that, obviously, once you create a permission set, you just need to assign that permission set to the user. Okay, you assign it to the user, but I'm not going to do that. One thing you should also know is that when it comes to focus, you need to have focus permission on the user record. If you do not have focus permission on the user record, the user will not be able to see this. So at work, if someone asks you, okay, I cannot see the focus, I cannot use focus, the first thing you want to find out is, does this user have the permission to have focus? If the user does not have that permission, which is this, the user will not be able to see focus. Okay, so remember, focus is something that you're privileged to have based on the permission, as well as based on privileges, permission sets, you can do overriding of focus. Now, let's say we have this guy. I'm going to enable focus back again. SD. What's this guy's username? SDSD, okay? Let me enable focus for this guy so we can actually switch focus. Allow focus. Okay, so I'll refresh this again. And I want to be able to have this guy. Maybe let me see if this guy has focus permission. Okay, I was gonna switch focus. So previously he doesn't have a focus permission. Now you can switch focus based on a particular user. Okay, I expect it to come up. Okay, yeah. So now you can switch focus based on a particular user, right? And if I switch back, I can switch to this user. You can click on a particular opportunity, you can click on a particular record on the focus and to give you what is contributing to that focus. What does that mean? It means in March, I don't have anything, but in June, I have this, right? And it's going to give you this value of the opportunity contributing to this focus, okay? And obviously, you can edit this opportunity, you can change the owner, and you can direct, you can minimize the opportunity and not show it, or you can raise it up, okay? Remember, you can switch focus types based on these options here. You can decide to show the quota if you want to, and you can decide not to show the quota if you don't want to. One last thing before we leave focus is this edit button, right? I told you, you can override a focus adjustment, okay? So let's say you feel like this should be better off. Obviously, March is gone, but in terms of June or July, you can say, I want to do something. I want to increase the focus, and I'm going to put a note here. Okay, once you put a note, something will come up here indicating that you have or you have done some adjustment on the forecast. Before you can do that, you need to have the override adjustment capability if you're a manager, and you need to have adjustment enabled in your forecast settings if you want the user to have the ability to do that. Okay, so that's pretty much forecast, but there's also more to forecast. Like I told you, you can determine the range of the forecast. How do you want people to see forecast? Either on a monthly period, on a quarterly period. As you can see, our forecast is currently March, April, May, which is fine. But if I change this to quarter, okay, it's going to be based on a quarter, and you can change the quarters which you want, okay? What constitutes towards a quarter? Remember, quarters are just like a couple of months together, okay? So that's what Salesforce probably would ask you on a quarter, on a forecast. The most important thing about forecast is the forecast type. You can have up to 4 forecast type activated at a time. And if you want to generate a report on forecast, you know what to do. You create a report type, and you can go to your reports to create reports based on forecast, because right now you can only see it. However, if you want to create a report, you need to have a report type for forecast and opportunities and forecast. Then you'll be able to create all these using a report instead of a static Salesforce record. Okay, let me take a pause here to find out if you guys have any questions regarding what I've said so far. Remember, this is an advanced class, and the expectations are you should be interested in learning about sales, or you should have some experience about sales. There is no point me teaching you the fundamentals of sales. I wouldn't teach you what forecast is, but then again, if you want to use forecast in Salesforce, this is how you can use it. Okay, I'm going to take a pause to find out if you guys have any questions before we move on to the next topic. Okay, so if you have any questions, just indicate by raising your hand, and I will call you according to how your hands are being raised. Okay, it appears that that was pretty much straightforward, not much issue. It makes sense. Okay, so I'm just going to go to the next area. So there is a reason why I had to teach forecast first, because forecast and what we're going to be doing is kind of like closely related. But then again, they are just sales elements. They are sales elements, meaning that you don't need to know them for you to become a Salesforce person. However, if you are at work or if you are consulting for a firm that uses forecast, then you should have an idea of the elements of forecast and how it is being used in Salesforce. Okay, so now the next one is sales territories. So the concept of sales territories is broad. Why is it broad? Because it is subjective. What do I mean by that? If you are a member of Black Force right now, and I told you our mission, no, not our mission, obviously not our mission, we cannot change mission, but our vision or our target or our strategy for the next quarter or for the next year is to expand into Europe. You can expand into Europe and you can manage accounts in Europe, but it can be very difficult to use account teams to manage accounts that are outside of a geographical region. Maybe I'm not saying, maybe if you have 1,000 accounts, it's easier, right? But if you now have 10,000 accounts, if you have 100,000 accounts, how would you be able to manage your accounts going forward? That's where the concept of enterprise territory management comes into place. The enterprise territory management helps you to manage accounts based on certain attributes, certain criteria. What do I mean by that? Let me give you an example. Yesterday, I was talking about opportunities, and I was talking about accounts hierarchies. I think this was the day before yesterday or thereabouts. We talk about account hierarchies, and we talk about, I think it's a different org I used yesterday. We have what they call we said we have an account called Blackforce Canada, okay? And we have an account called Blackforce Ontario, which is a child of Blackforce Canada. And we have another account called Blackforce Toronto, which is a child of Blackforce Ontario, right? So basically, what that means is that we have different accounts that are based on hierarchy. And it can be very difficult to find someone to manage these accounts out of the box. You can decide to use account teams, but you have limitations with account teams. You have limitation in the sense that you have to manually be adding people. What if this particular person is not a member of this account team? How would you be able to manage that account? What if this particular user or the account executive for this account is not available today? How would you be able to manage such accounts? That's where the concept of enterprise territory management comes into place. When it comes to territory, don't see it as a geographical boundary, even though I've used geographical boundary as an example, but you don't see it as a geographical boundary. You see it as a group of accounts that needs to be managed or that needs to be used as forecast, that needs to be used for forecasting or for whatever you want to do in your organization. For instance, if I want to group different accounts based on the amount of revenue they have every year, I could use territory management approach to do that. If I want to group different accounts based on the industry, the service, technology, oil and gas, pharmaceutical, I can use territory management to do that. So territory management does not necessarily mean that they are based on the territory. However, in most cases, they are usually based on territory. Okay, so let me give you a good example of territories. When you go to roles, you have setup roles. And the setup roles, you see the CEO, you see this, right? You see all this. These are roles hierarchy, which is fine. But if I should go back to roles again, let me go out of here and come back to roles. You will see that it says territory-based example, product-based example, company size-based example. What does this mean in terms of management of accounts? It means that I can manage my accounts the same way I am managing my roles and hierarchy, the same way I am managing my users according to the roles hierarchy. Okay, so territory does not necessarily mean territory. However, most use cases for territory management is based on territory. So how do you get started? How do you get started with territory? How do you start managing things? The first thing, just like your forecasting, is to enable territory. Okay, you go to territory settings and you click on settings. Once you click on settings, you need to understand that actually you can disable territory once you activate territory, so you don't have a problem with that. Enterprise territory management allows you to organize your sales structure into separate territories based on geographical attributes, named accounts, industry verticals, and the likes. Okay, so if you're experienced, you probably get what I'm talking about here. What I'm talking about is you can group your accounts based on different attributes. Okay, so I click on enable enterprise territory management. One thing you should know when you're enabling enterprise territory management is what happened to your assets. Remember from yesterday, access can be restrictive and access can be open. When you're working as a team and you want someone to help you out when you're not available at work, then you want to give them access. I proposed using account team the last time we're working on account management. But this time around, once you have a territory management enabled, then you can use territory management to open up or restrict access. Remember, don't confuse this with your profile, org wide default, and the likes. They exist by themselves, but this one also exists as well. What can you do based on the account defaults access? You can give them view access. You can give them view and edit access. You can give them view, edit, and transfer and delete account access. Okay? Similarly to opportunity, similarly to case. This is an exam question. I think is in the admin certification, not Sales Cloud. Basically, they will ask you when you enable this kind of territory management, what type of object can you grant access to? They can give you opportunity contacts, opportunity cases, opportunity, and maybe asset or something like that. But remember, you can give opportunity and case access, okay? Number two, view is the most restrictive access you can grant. By view, you mean that, okay, they can read the accounts, okay? They can read the account and that's all. They cannot do anything other than reading the account. But if you give them view and edit, obviously they can edit, view, edit, transfer, and delete, then they can delete. But they can ask you, what is the most restrictive access you can give on the opportunity objects? The most restrictive access is not to give them access at all. So you can choose not to give them access at all when you are working with opportunity. And with case, obviously, you can decide not to give access, give view, or view and edit. Sorry. So you have opportunity territory assignment. Give me 1 minute, please. So you have the opportunity territory assignment, okay? The same settings you're given. It's totally up to you. But then again, remember, everything you do in your Salesforce org should be driven by business requirements. You cannot just enable something and try to, okay, I want to give these people access. You need to ask the business, should I grant case access for anyone that have the access to accounts based on the territory assignments before you grant that access? Lastly, there's what they call assignment filter. This is very important because when you run a territory management, you can simulate an auto assignment using Apex. So what typically happens is that you write an Apex code that you can easily run every time there is a territory management assignment kicks in or when it kicks in, okay? And obviously you have the assignment rules as well within territory management. We're going to see some of the use cases of this shortly. Let's click on save. So when we're talking about territory, let me save this. I think it's still loading. Okay, it has been saved. So when we talk about territory, let's explain the fundamentals. Territory. So we have territory models, we have territory types. But what is a territory? A territory is like a boundary. That's it. A territory is like a boundary. How you decide the boundary, what constitutes toward the boundary is totally subjective to the business. For instance, you can say, all people based in California, I want to assign the sales agents to that territory. All the people But you need to remember something. You cannot say all people based in California assigned to this agent, all people based in technology assigned to this agent. That's a wrong approach to designing a territory. A territory helps you to organize group of accounts and the sales rep will work with them. Okay, so the group of account needs to be logically designed. Okay, if you're going to be using named, use name. If you're going to be using territory based on geography, use territory based on geography. You're going to be using industry, use industry. Don't be vague. Don't create different types of territory and create a territory management that will confuse the business. Okay, so that's one thing you need to note. And the territory types. What are the territory types? The territory types are just types of territory. Okay, it helps you to differentiate the type of territory. And you can also have what they call the territory priority. So territory priority is just a case of prioritizing which territory this belongs, which territory this agent has, and the likes. Okay. In addition to that, we have what they call the territory models. The territory models is a type of model you are putting into place. So when you say like you have a territory model, you're talking about, how would I put it? How do you assign accounts? How do you assign accounts to a particular group of users? Okay, so it represents like a complete system which you've put in place to assign a particular account that you're just creating. Okay, if you create an account right now, how do you assign that account to a particular sales rep or a particular group of users? Then the model you've implemented, okay, is the territory model definition. And there's also what they call the model state. The model state is just pretty much whether the territory is active or the territory is in planning. So when you first create a territory model, the first state is planning. That means you're still planning how you want to approach your territory design. Okay. After that, you can activate the territory design. Then once the territory design is no longer in use, you can just archive it. Okay. So you have three states: planning, archive, planning, active, and archive. Okay. The first thing we need to do when we come to territory management is to define the territory types. So again, territory type is just like the type of territory you want to create. Remember, when you want to enable territory, it says you have named accounts, you have geographical accounts, you have industry-based and the like. So let's just kind of like say I want industry or geographical named accounts, okay? So I can give it a priority and we can learn more about this priority. Learning more about the priority is just a way to kind of like group different reps and stuff like that based on the priority you set. It gives you ability to say, this one is highly prioritized and this one is less prioritized. Again, I think is linking to the wrong stuff, but that's not a problem. Let's carry on. I'll just give it 100, or you can give it whatever number it is. But remember, you can always create a new type that is within a lower priority. So it's going to, just like, you know, when you have your rules in assignment rules and stuff like that, that's how the priority works, okay? So it's like which one comes first when you want to initiate a particular rule and the likes, okay? So now we have a named territory, which is fine, okay? If you go to territory types, you'll be able to see the name, okay? The next thing is we need to have a model, right? We go to models, and remember, models are ways which you want to, how would I put it? Models are ways or like the things you are looking for. Why are you creating a territory in the first instance? Why do you want to have a territory? How do you want to assign account to a particular territory? That's what I call a model. A model is how you are implementing your territory. You've created a type, which is fine, but a model is the approach which you are using to group different accounts into a territory type, okay? I can't explain it more than that. That's the definition. The model is what you're using to group different accounts into a territory type that you've just created. So for instance, let's create a model to, I'll just use a typical example. I want to create a model for the current fiscal year. For a particular territory. As you can see, the default state is planning, okay? I save. So now I've created a model, right? The next thing is now you need to associate that type and model together, okay? You need to associate that type and model together. How do you do that? You need to create a territory, okay? So let's view hierarchy. Once you view hierarchy, then you can now start creating a territory. The territory is just boundaries. Remember, what is our territory types? Our territory types is geographical named account. Fine. Our model is I want to simulate a current fiscal year. Fine. Now, create a territory. What should be a territory for a typical current fiscal year based on geographical type? A typical current fiscal year could be, based on geographical type, could be, let's say, Toronto, okay? And we select the named accounts, which is fine. And current fiscal year as a parent this thing, which is fine. Then we could just say Toronto accounts in the current fiscal year. That's all. That's all we are doing. That's how you create the territory. You create the territory and you save. But remember, you can select the type of access level you're going to be giving users that belongs to the user that belong to this territory. Okay, save. And let's create another one. Go back to model, current fiscal year, hierarchy. Then I'm going to create another territory. Vancouver. And I'm going to select the same territory type I created. Then I'll give a description, Vancouver, accounts in Vancouver. Again, you have to give the access level for the user you're going to be assigning to this territory. It's very important. The whole idea is grouping accounts. So we've seen account team, we've seen opportunity team, and the likes. This is the territory way of grouping your accounts, okay? So it's very important to give the access for that particular user, okay? You will see how to add a user to this account shortly. Anyway, I don't even need to tell you, this is how to do it. Assign users. Who are the assigned users to this territory? Okay, who are the assigned users to this Vancouver? Then you can just go to your Salesforce and just grab the users in your Salesforce. Okay, you don't have to necessarily grab all the users. You just have to logically grab users based on your business. Okay, so that's the most important thing. I click on save. Then you've assigned users to Vancouver. You have to go back and do the same for your Toronto, okay? You click on Toronto and you go to manage users, okay? And you grab user and you put it there, okay? Again, I'm just getting all the users, but you don't have to get all the users, okay? You just need to get the users that are applicable to Toronto, the users that are applicable to Vancouver, okay? So now that's for assignment of users. There is more to it. Go to assignment rules. So what are assignment rules? You already know what assignment rules are. I don't need to explain that to you. But for the sake of this territory management, assignment rules are the criteria you're looking out for that would make this territory a Toronto account. What are the criteria you're looking for that will make this a Toronto account? So you go to assignment rules and you type in check city. Then you go to city, city equals Toronto. Okay? Or if you want to have something else, you feel that would enable the system to automatically assign this territory to Toronto, such as a state. The state equals to province, equals to Ontario, right? You know, Ontario is in Toronto. Toronto is in Ontario. That means at least these two must match, right? Or maybe you're using the US zip code logic, because the US zip code, it has, numbers, right? And the numbers determine what the zip code is. For instance, 7 is Texas, I think. 9 is California. 6 is Florida, I'm not sure. But you can go based on zip code as well. And you can use those equal signs, greater than, and the likes to group cities, okay? Then you save. But before you save, there's an optional condition here. So basically, this condition is saying you can apply this to child territories under Toronto. What does that mean? It means that once you click on this, any territory you have under Toronto, this logic would also apply to them, okay? But be careful when you do this. It automatically assigns the users and the likes, okay? So you have to be careful when you're selecting that checkbox. So now that's you creating assignment rules for Toronto. Go back and create assignment rule for Vancouver. The same logic applies, okay? The same logic applies. I go to assignment rules and I say check city, which is Vancouver, and I go to billing city equals Vancouver, okay? Vancouver applies, save. That's, we cannot use the same API twice, okay? So that's it. Now, you've created it, but what is the benefit of creating this? How does it really work? First thing first, you need to have an account in a territory. To have an account, you had an account. You see, this stuff is common sense, right? It's not hard, but you need to understand why you're doing it. Why am I adding users to a territory? I'm adding the users to a territory so the users can have access to the accounts in that territory. Why am I adding rules to a territory? I'm adding rules to a territory because I want the rule to automatically initiate anytime the account is being created and it matches the criteria I have set in the rule. Why am I manually adding an account in the territory? I'm manually adding an account in the territory because I feel like doing that, okay? There is no logical reason why you should be manually doing that. But if you do not want to use automation, then you can manually assign accounts to a territory, okay? So that's how to manually assign to a territory. But that defeats the automation process. So for you to automate the process, the first thing you need to do is to make the assignment rule active. Once you make the assignment rule active, then instead of you manually adding accounts to a territory, all you just need to do is run the rules, okay? Once you run the rules, all this stuff will be done automatically. And remember, once you run rules, it can take a bit of time to process, okay? But it's going to tell you when it has been processed, okay? So now, remember, take a step back. You create a named territory, which is a geographical based territory. You go to a model, you create a model called the current fiscal year, and you want to assign accounts based on the current fiscal year. How do you do that? You go to view hierarchy and you add different stuff into them, okay? But before then, before we activate, let's activate the current fiscal year. It takes a bit of time, but once you activate it, then you can do what they call, I want to run rows, okay? You can run the assignment rows. Once you run the assignment rows, it will look into all accounts that matches the criteria that matches the criteria for your assignment rows, and it's assigned those territories. So why do we do this? Again, remember, you're giving access to a user. That's all. And you can forecast, you can see things. Okay? For instance, if you go to account right now, you don't have the users in accounts. I'll go to the setup and I'm going to go to the account object. I'll go to the page layout. And anytime I'm in an account, I go to the related session and I can see the assigned territories. I can also see users in territories. Save. Okay, so if I refresh this, I don't think I added any users to this this territory, but I think I added the other one. So let's go to, I think I did that. Can you see? I added users in territory. So I can see where this territory belongs. I can see users in territory, and I can, look at, you need to know why you're doing it, okay? I can even create a report. All I need to do is go to report type, okay? And based on my model, I can create a report type that finds my territory, finds the accounts in the territory, find the revenue, and find the users that belong to a territory. Remember, the whole purpose of doing this territory management is to group accounts together, is to be able to reach out to a particular account based on a sales rep. That means you don't want, I remember when I wanted to subscribe to Salesforce. When I went to Salesforce website, I was talking to an agent. An agent said, "Oh, where are you based?" When the agent asked me where I was based, I said I was based in Toronto, Canada. And the agent said, "Okay, give me 1 minute," and directed me to a rep based in Canada and not a rep based in state. That is the whole purpose. Oh God, that is the whole purpose of territory management, to be able to manage the accounts and be able to target the customers properly. So someone that is fluent in French would not be attending to someone an account that is based in Japan. That is the whole purpose of territory management when it comes to Sales Cloud. Let me take a pause here to find out if this makes sense to you. The whole concept of territory management makes sense to you, and you can relate with this based on your work experience. Okay, I'm going to take a pause here. Please raise your hand if you have any questions regarding territory management in Sales Cloud. Okay, it appears that we do not have any questions, and my understanding is this is making sense to you, because to be honest with you, I don't see anything really technical other than the fact that it's a new concept. It's something that you haven't seen before. So it's not something technical. It's something you need to relate with. If you can relate with it, then you know definitely that it's something that if in future you're asked to create an enterprise territory model, what you need to do is to start with the type, okay? You want to start with the types, and You want to create models, okay? But the type will determine the structure of the organization. After doing that, you want to create a model. And once you create a model, you can add different territory inside that model. And once you have a different territory inside the model, you can create rules that would help you manage the territories in the model and who can get access to the model and the type of access they can get. And ultimately, you can create rules that would ensure that only certain types of accounts are getting into the model you've created. Based, obviously, this is what they call the model. In any ways, if you want to find out, model is just a way of doing things. This is what they call the model. The logic you put in place, the type of conditions that constitute to a particular territory. Okay, so I think that's pretty much what we have on forecasting and territory. Okay, it's just a one bullet point according to Salesforce, but because it's a new concept, I wanted you guys to understand it in a different day. So I had to do this today. We could have done it yesterday, but I prefer to do it today. Do you guys have any questions regarding this? Do you guys have any questions regarding forecasting and enterprise territory management before we, I think I can do one or two things before we end the class. Okay. Do you guys have any questions on this? Okay. If we don't have any questions, we can quickly go into reports, even though it's not planned for tonight. I just want to show you how you can start reporting in Sales Cloud. Okay. So first of all, you guys are aware of the normal reports. And I've mentioned it twice tonight, report type. Report types are very important when it comes to custom reports because there are some things that they will ask you to do at work and you will not be able to achieve them. Report type is a way to create a custom report that would help you to achieve the kind of data you are trying to get. For instance, I said territories. I said forecasting. What if you go to reports right now and you go to new reports? You go to new reports and you're looking for let's go with opportunities. Opportunity teams is fine. Is that focus? Let's look for focus. There's no focus, right? So how do you achieve that? You have to create what I call a custom report that will bring you opportunity and the forecast together. But that's not all. There's what they call the App Exchange, which obviously you guys are familiar with. The App Exchange has arguably some of the things you want to do. So if your business or the company you're working for do not have problem with App Exchange plugins, these App Exchange plugins are actually verified. They're actually trustworthy. So it's not something like someone might probably want to steal your data and the likes. There are things Salesforce actually verify before they publish. So they are trusted applications and try to use them as much as possible. Okay. So there's what I call the sales dashboard. The sales dashboard. So this is what I call the sales activity, but that's just one. There's what they call, there are other sales activities as well, such as geographical prospecting, everything we discussed in our first day of training. You can find a dashboard that is helping you to track those metrics. So Salesforce expects us to know at least some of these metrics and be able to create them. Okay, Salesforce expects us to know at least some of these metrics and be able to create them. So I'm just going to get this now. And it's going to ask me to log in, allow access. And I'm going to install in this org, okay? Confirm. So once you install, you'll be able to see it in your dashboard. Okay, I believe this has been installed. I will refresh this. If it's completed, it's going to tell you that it's completed, okay? But I haven't got the confirmation yet. So let me just go to my dashboard and see if the dashboard is there. It's not there yet. It's still loading. Normally, you will get a confirmation once it's done. But the bottom line, what I'm trying to show you is that Salesforce has dedicated or pre-made dashboard you can use in your org. So one thing you just need to do is activate those forecasts, activate those enterprise territory management and the likes, then install this dashboard and you can work based on this dashboard. So you don't have to create things from scratch. You just need to be able to use the out-of-the-box dashboard and customize it to fit into the narrative or to fit into the business requirement that you've been given. Okay, I think there is some delay. The sales dashboard usually takes a bit of time because it's quite huge. Okay, so it's sales adoption dashboard, and you can see a lot of features in those dashboard. Let's see. And you can read the reviews of this dashboard as well, just in case you want. In fact, anytime they ask you something at work and you feel like you're a consultant, you're not a developer, this is where you want to go to get those stuff. You don't have to develop that stuff. Don't spend time developing it if there is no time to do that. You need to use out-of-the-box solutions such as the one in the App Exchange. Okay, so I think the sales dashboard takes a bit of time because it's a lot. However, you should install the dashboard in your org, and you'll be able to see a lot of activities in the dashboard. Let me see if I can install it using a different approach. Let me try to navigate away from here and come back here. Before I do that, let me go to installed. So it's not there. Okay, it's still not there, but that's fine. App Manager, App Exchange Marketplace. And I'm trying to see maybe something lighter. Sales dashboard. Let's go to something a little bit lighter. And when you want to, I think you have to pay for this, right? Okay, it's free. And there are different ways to install this, right? If you can find the ID, then you can go to. If you can find the ID, that was what I was trying to look for. I was trying to look for the ID. You can find the ID, then you can go to this starter, I think, playground starter, I think, and you can find install a package. Okay, you'll see install a package. Then you just put the ID here. So if you can find the ID in the App Exchange, oh, this stuff came up. I don't think we had it the last time. Okay, when it's fully installed, it's going to tell you done. Alternatively, just go to the playground starter, install a package, put the ID here, and you click on install. Okay, so that's pretty much it. I was going to show you some some dashboard, but maybe tomorrow I can show you some dashboard before our class. But again, I would like to find out if you guys have any questions based on forecasting and enterprise territory management before we end the class for today, because the expectations are you should know this, okay? If there are no questions, I think that's all I have for you tonight. Tomorrow, I'm going to meet up with you to continue with the training, but more importantly, we're going to be focusing on application of product knowledge. So I'm going to come up with a case study for a typical Sales Cloud project, which we're going to do together in class, maybe like a Black Force case study or something. We're going to do it in class, and we're going to touch all the product knowledge. So right now, we've seen lead, we've seen account, we've seen contact, we've seen opportunity, we've seen consulting practices, which is pretty much your experience. So I've taught that in Service Cloud, and I went over it again in Sales Cloud, but it's more of your experience, okay? We've seen data management. So tomorrow, I'm going to go through these reports and dashboards just to show you what Salesforce expects you to know. But then again, we went through the sales metric in the first class. So this kind of stuff should now be sticking. So when I say sales growth, I'm not going to give you the formula to calculate the sales growth, but you know that the current number minus the previous number divided by the current number times 100% will give you growth rate, right? If you want to find out revenue today will be current date, sum of all revenues in the current date. So when they say determine the appropriate report, dashboard, and reporting snapshot solution, you want to kind of like look into the marketplace to find out the appropriate report you can create. Or you need to logically think about it. If I want to find a sales growth, if I want to find total revenue, if I want to find churn rates, those are the kind of things you need to logically think about, okay? It's very subjective. I can still give you those metrics, but then again, there could be thousands of metrics we can come up with. But for tomorrow, I want us to deal with all the opportunity objects as a case study. So we're going to see how to use the account teams, opportunity teams. We're going to see how to use the quote, how to use the order. We're going to see how, obviously, you know this from your admin, but we're going to see how to activate the currency management, how to differentiate within the default currency and the parenthetical currency, whereby if you have two currencies, which one will display in your front end? This is the currency management, the dated currency management and the likes. Then we see how to enable opportunity products and the product schedule. If you want to have a subscription product, if you want to have a package being renewed every other month, we can do that using the schedule management, okay? So tomorrow we're going to have a very good case study of the product knowledge of Sales Cloud. However, based on your knowledge so far, you should be at least 70% ready to take your certification, if at all you're interested in taking the certification, okay? I wouldn't spend much time on certification. I expect you guys to now know the trick. You just need to practice, and you need to take it as soon as it is being loaded, because Salesforce changes their certification exams almost every month. And the questions we're looking into today might probably not be the questions you're going to see in your exams, okay? It's just for practice, and it's for you to be confident going into the exams, okay? I think that's all from me. If there are no other questions, I'm going to meet with the work experience group to discuss what we have planned for tomorrow. So I want to meet with each and every group, okay? The quiz will be loaded as soon as possible. I need to review the questions, and I need to make sure that it is properly researched, as well as the answers are properly in terms of the knowledge area, as well as the solution. I need to make sure that I properly research them, okay? It's for your own benefit, and I don't want for you guys to be practicing things that are obsolete. So I need to make sure that I'm doing my own research as well. Again, I do not work with Salesforce. I do not have any connection with Salesforce. I do not have any links. So please do not listen to anyone that says anything otherwise. I am just trying to help you get the best out of the Salesforce and the Sales Cloud, which we are working on, okay? So anytime we do any certifications, is as a result of our collective knowledge, and all the questions are available online. So there is nothing special in the question other than the fact that we are looking them together and we're making answers based on our collective knowledge. Okay, I think that's all from me. Take care. I will speak to the group on work experience, and we discuss on our approach of demoing tomorrow, and we can take it off from there. Take care, everyone. Have a good evening. Bye. I will see you guys tomorrow. All the best.